On November 2nd, 2016, in Redding, California, a mother of two went for a jog and vanished. Her name was Sherri Papini. She left her phone and earbuds neatly placed on the side of a rural road. Not dropped, not smashed, placed. That was the first detail that didn't make sense. Her husband, Keith Papini, came home from work and found the house empty. Sherri hadn't picked up their children from daycare. By evening, the entire community was searching. By nightfall, it was national news. A young blonde mother had disappeared in broad daylight, and the scene looked staged, but no one wanted to believe that. The return. 22 days later, at 4:30 in the morning, a woman was found running along Interstate 5. Her wrists were zip-tied. Her body was bruised. She had been branded on her shoulder. It was Sherri. She told police she had been abducted by two Hispanic women. She described them in detail. One young, one older, both armed. They kept her chained, beat her, starved her. She said they played loud Spanish music constantly so she couldn't think. The country was horrified. A GoFundMe had already raised thousands. Now the story was everywhere. A brave mother survives captivity. But investigators noticed something odd. Sherri's injuries were real, but they weren't defensive. There were no signs she fought back. No skin under her fingernails, no torn clothing consistent with a struggle. And the zip ties? They were loose. The DNA forensic teams swabbed her clothing. Male DNA was found. That didn't match her husband, and it didn't match any known criminal in the system. Police assumed it belonged to one of the kidnappers' partners. The case stayed open for years. Sketches were released. Communities were tense. People were angry. Two imaginary women were being hunted. The break in the case. In 2020, 4 years later, investigators ran the unknown male DNA through a new genealogical database. It matched a relative of a man named James Reyes. Reyes lived in Southern California. When confronted, he didn't deny knowing Sherri. He told investigators something unbelievable. Sherri hadn't been kidnapped. She had been living with him. Voluntarily. The truth, years before her disappearance, Sherri and Reyes had been romantically involved. According to Reyes, Sherri contacted him in 2016. She said she needed to escape her husband. She asked him to pick her up. He drove 6 hours to Redding. She got in the car willingly. For 22 days, she stayed in his apartment. She wasn't chained. She wasn't tortured. She wasn't imprisoned. But she did ask him to hurt her. Reyes admitted he branded her at her request. She hit herself with hockey pucks to create bruises. She starved herself. She cut her own hair. She rehearsed the kidnapping story repeatedly. Then she asked Reyes to drop her off near the highway on Thanksgiving morning. She ran into traffic, screaming for help. The performance began. When investigators confronted Sherri with the evidence, she didn't collapse immediately. She stuck to the story, for years, until she couldn't. The DNA proved she had been with Reyes. Receipts proved she wasn't confined. Phone records showed planning. In 2022, she finally admitted it. She had faked her own kidnapping. Why? Attention, control, escape. Experts later described it as a combination of narcissistic tendencies and a desperate need for validation. But here's what makes the case darker. Her false story triggered racial fear. Two non-existent women were blamed publicly. The town lived in panic, and her own children grew up believing their mother was a survivor. The aftermath. Sherri Papini was sentenced to 18 months in prison for mail fraud and lying to federal agents. She had to pay back over $300,000 in restitution. Her husband filed for divorce. The community felt betrayed. But the most disturbing part? In interviews after her arrest, investigators said she still minimized what she did, as if it wasn't that serious, as if the world had overreacted. When asked why she went through so much physical pain just to fake a crime, one detective said something chilling. She didn't want to disappear, she wanted to be found. And that's what makes this story so unsettling. There was no masked intruder, no hidden predator, no shadowy cartel, just a woman who understood exactly how much fear the world would feel for her, and used it.